Hi everyone, thank you for joining me in this video. We're going to build a sliding door to go over this opening. The rail is already up and I built that in a previous video. That doorway is about 4 feet wide by 9 feet tall, 8 or 9 feet tall, and it will be made out of, I think, pine. It's either going to be a full solid 2 inches thick or made up out of 2 layers of 1 inch thick with a 1 inch thick panel and then some sort of framework applied to the top of that. Slab glued. This will be the biggest one I've ever glued up as far as its width. I've glued up a 16-foot long tabletop before, and in that case I had to join boards end to end so the boards weren't long enough, and I did all that also using the domino. So that's I think a 14mm domino, and that's more for board alignment. In that case of end to end boards, end grain to end grain, That's going to add some strength for sure. It adds strength to it, but it's more just to make sure the top is aligned. And then, of course, did the router on the edges of the board, so it's going to give it a paneled look, and then the framework will go over top this. And they're not all the same width. I would have needed more boards to make them all the same width and the overall panel be wide enough. So I'll have to kind of consider that in the design moving forward. And I think I'm also going to design in a window of some sort. The full width of this was about 55 inches wide, so I was not able to use my clamps. So I used these straps. These are just ratchet straps. These are band clamps, but basically ratchet straps. And then I just put these boards down and then shimmed under it right in the middle to keep it pressed down where it's joined. Because if you do this and you've got all that tension, what can happen is the top can go boom, and you can come back and it be popped up. Having those dominoes in there helps that, but it also helps keep this joint tight. So I've got the 2x4s on their edge, which were nice and straight, and then this board, you would call it a caul, that's pushing down. And I did that because it was kind of bowing it up, so I picked up on it and slipped that under there to tighten that up. I think that's it. It's a little under 7/8, or right around 7/8 of an inch thick. But then you got to keep in mind there's going to be that next layer on there. So this is going to be probably 1.5 to 1.75 inches overall thickness in its appearance. Just the thinnest parts of it will be this, but it will appear to be thicker. That keeps it lighter weight, which will make the door easier to operate. And I think it'll make it more stable. This panel is more flexible also. So when I make the frame, and I've got those cross pieces of the frame, if there's any waviness in this, it's going to pull all that straight, versus if this was thicker and then I put a frame on it, it would probably, the thickness of this would be stronger than the framework. So I'll be able to get a flatter door in the end using this, making the panel a little thinner. Frame is unclamped, and now I'm going to run the router bit around the inside of the whole frame. So this is going to give it a profile. The profile I'm going with is just a simple 45-degree chamfer, and I did two different options at first, trying to consider what I'm going to do. One is this. It's just a round over bit, so you can see a round over, ran it down low enough to where there was a lip, so it's a 3/8 inch round over. And then on the other side, I ran the chamfer. So the router bit obviously creates a round kind of end to the cut. This was measured 2 inches off just to kind of see where I wanted to go with that. You could run it all the way to the corner and then square out a miter there. That kind of takes on sort of a funny look, but this is painted, so it really doesn't matter. On the other side, I ran it to 1.5 inches, and I think I liked that more if you just stopped like this. But then my wife didn't really like this little round over, so she said, what if you just squared it off? So I squared it out, squared out that corner and looked at that. That didn't look right, but then I was like, well, I could, kind of end it in a miter. So that's what that would look like. So it just runs and then miters out. And of course, some people are going to prefer this, but I ended up liking the look of this because it just ends up looking more hand done, because you don't create this with a tool like a router, it would crease that little radius. So this just kind of knocking that corner out. And I like that it runs and then flares up and then goes. It kind of makes the corners look more reinforced. So that's what I'm doing on the whole thing, and then the whole thing will be applied to the panel. Here she is, all assembled. So this is as far as this video is going. We're going to stand it up in a minute and consider a few things. But in the next video, we'll get the window put in, the hardware, door painted, and mounted, and whatever else has to happen. So like the handle, and then there'll probably be something on the building to kind of guide the door at the bottom, a way to latch it shut. There's going to be all those types of things. Basically, as far as I can get in the next video, without having to do something else to the building. Sometimes one phase of the building I have to stop working on it because there's another part of the building it has to be considered before I can finish the first thing. But I'll very quickly kind of talk about why I constructed it this way. Again, it's to build up a thickness but keep it relatively thin to avoid having to do the heavy dimensions in the frame and then float these as individual panels. It's just a very simple way of constructing it. It's not as stable. You can see there's a little bit of what's happened is this top side of the table, because it's kind of more exposed than the bottom side, is dried a little bit, so it caused it to cup. All I have to do is flip it over to go back the other way, and then once I get it finished and hung and there's air on both sides, it'll be fine, and certainly good enough for what I'm using it for. You won't notice it being out of plane if it's a little something occurs to it, because it's just hanging from those rollers over an opening. It's not shutting into a normal opening like a normal door. So plugging it like this, some people might have not liked that I did that right in the face. The other way I could have done it was flip the whole panel over and then flipped this over on that, and then on the back side trace the shape of the door, drilled all the countersink holes on the back side, and then basically take it as is, flip it over and screw it from the back side. But the reason I didn't do that is I would not easily be able to get everything lined up. I wouldn't easily be able to watch to make sure this is pulled down tight to the panel. And in the end, this is going to be a painted door, so I'm not concerned about these plug holes. And I don't even mind them even if they were exposed, kind of considering what the door is, the materials it's made out of, and what it's being used for. Even if that's exposed, even if you can kind of see the ghosting of that through the finish that I use, it doesn't bother me. So I think that is all I need to say now. Let's go ahead and stand it up and take a look at what it looks like vertical. Beautiful. I like its proportions. It's funny, I'm looking at it through the viewfinder and not looking directly at it right now. It's funny how that much of a difference that makes. Sometimes I do that with my stuff, various things I make, whether it's engraving or some furniture project, because it's just another perspective on looking at it. And then also, if you're doing stuff like I do, if you're someone is selling and using your photographs for your selling, you have to think of that as the format in which it's going to be sold. Now, the photos and the real thing have to line up, but it just gives you one more way to look at something. You can think of it sort of a head-on view, three-quarter view, kind of bird's eye view, and then there's the digital view of it. So I like looking at stuff like this. But when I'm looking at this and I see there are proportions of that top kind of paneled out space, the 3 panels, the height of it, and so forth, I'm liking it. It's funny that it just happens to be about the same height as this other sliding door it's sitting beside. But I'll go stand beside it real quick, even though you've already seen me stand beside it. So it's big. The window that I would put in it would be somewhere up here to where you couldn't easily look into it. And the reason I want to do that is just to where you can't look into my building quite as easily. Let me kind of get a better, different views maybe. I don't know if I've apologized for my mess. I'm not able to work if it's not a mess, because I would never be able to get started. I'm cleaning everything up. So I'm not gonna worry about it too much. Planning on cleaning it up one day. Guess that's all that matters. So yeah, and then look at it from the edge. You know, it's all the same color right now. So when things are painted, you can see their form much better. Like everything just blends in so much when you look at it like this. Unless you like really specifically get the shadows going in the right way. Let's get it from that other angle. Yeah. So here you can see, you know, it looks like a thick door. I guess it is a thick door technically. Even a panel door, it's the same thing. It's just oriented a little bit different. So very happy. So what I want y'all to consider with me right now, and I'll give you a few options. So even that's a good way to look at it. It's a wide angle, but still, it's a different way of looking at something. We'll go back to this. I want to consider the window. I mean, in just think about anything. It could be a circular window that fills the whole thing. It could be an arch top window that fills almost the whole thing, a single one. It could be three arches, two arches, one skinny one in the middle, a very tiny window in the middle, say a 6x6 window or 2x2 foot window. That's technically, I think, not a square space. I think it's a little wider than it is tall. I can't remember right now, doesn't matter. But, so I'm kind of like, I'll humor anything. What needs to be considered is the trim that goes around it. I want the trim to be simple but interesting. The other thing to consider would be is the trim that goes around the windows, is it going to be kind of, is it going to be painted the same as the door, or would I paint the door and then install and trim the window and say something like cherry and the door's painted a color? So you get that contrast in there. I'm leaning towards the trim and the door all one thing, and then you're more focused on the form of the door, the line, the paneling, and then the window, and not getting distracted and impressed by some wood grain. The other thing I've considered is doing some stained glass, not as in a stained glass window with lead and everything, but using stained glass as a panel, just to have some colored glass there, to where when you're on the inside, say it was some amber colored glass, you get sort of an amber glow from that window inside the building, which would be nice. Then there's the handle. I can make a handle. It could be a wood handle. It could be some metal handle, some found object as a handle. And when I say handle, I mean it'd be like a vertical handle like this one that you pull it back and forth. I'll probably do something somewhat normal. I think it's very, very easy to do something that you think is cool, like say you put a wrench right there as a handle, and it just be kind of corny. Just be like something you'd see on Pinterest. And there's a lot of beautiful things on these websites that people post images on. But again, it all just like, just because something's clever doesn't make a good design. So I don't want to like this handle right here is a gate handle that would have had a thumb latch on it. And again, I'm not like trying, it's just all I got to look at right now. But like this, it's not clever. It's kind of like, it's what I had. I'd say it's an honest handle to be right there. It's not meant for this type of handle, but it's of a size that can handle a door like this, had the holes to bolt it, but you can see that it was reused. But it kind of blends in with this whole thing. If I stuck a wrench right here, like a big like open face wrench right there, or some adjustable wrench that's somehow made to be a handle, it would look like I saw a picture of something and then did it. And so I don't want that type of thing. Sorry if I'm beating the dead horse there. So I think that's it. Let me know your opinion on the windows, and because I'm going to start in on that soon. Nothing about this project didn't go very smooth, except maybe the top is kind of, it's cupped a little bit towards us. The two sides are closer to us. The center's facing away. And that's just the nature of doing a door like this. If it was floating panels, the panels would individually shrink and then not cause the whole door to cup. But all that can be adjusted with me kind of exposing one side to air more than the other, and then do the finishing, and then once it's hung, it'll stabilize. It's a good time of the year right now for me to be doing it. It's been hot and dry, so these boards are down to, I'd say, probably they've equalized for my area. But there'll be some seasonal change, but it's a door that hangs. So like this door, for example, there's no way it's a single plane. It's in terms of how flat it is and how even it is, it's a mess, but it's just hanging from those rollers over an opening, and this one will be the same. The tolerances are big. It's not like it's shutting into a normal door frame. I've probably already said this. So I think that's it. Thank you all for watching, and expect again in the next video we're going to have the rollers, the hardware up top, window, paint, handle. So that's a refresher, and then any sort of adjustments to the size, which may mean just a little trimming off the bottom of the door. Allowed about a ½ inch more than the most I thought it would be over there. So thanks again, and I'll be back soon. Reason we're doing a project like this is I hurt myself recently. and I couldn't jump back on the house project. I couldn't really lift stuff, but you can see now I'm lifting things. So I'll be getting back on the $9,000 house soon. But I had to take a break. I've had like I said, I got hurt. And what happened is I was moving a saw in this building, and I fell over holding this saw. It was way too big to pick up the radio arm saw, and I fell over on a bunch of other tools, and it landed on my arm. And I hit my arm. You can't see it anymore. But I hit my arm here, and I developed a bruise that went from here all the way to here under my whole forearm. And I thought I like broke the muscle in my arm is what I thought happened, but it's slowly getting better, but I still can't stress it hard. I think that's it. And I'll update y'all probably in the next video on a bunch of the other stuff I've been doing. I'm basically getting this building here, which is usually just packed with junk, kind of converted to a semi-temporary wood shop before I transition to my new wood shop that will be inside the sawmill building, the off-grid workshop building. So thanks. See you next time. Check the description for all the links you can click on. Bye-bye.